Well, this carburetor couldn't be more simple in design, really, now that I look at it. It's got an unconventional float, or at least unconventional to what I'm used to. There's a little pin down the center here that looks like its only job is to act as a guide for this float, so it moves freely up and down the bore. Well, the fuel comes in through the top here, goes through that screen that sits around this, goes into that hole. It's allowed to come in through this needle valve right here, which is controlled by the float. The fuel is drawn in from the bowl through a hole down in the bottom, located approximately right in here. And at that point, it's drawn up this galley, which is plugged with a screw right here. And from there, it looks like the main jet is fed right through that. Right here. This screw here appears to be right in the bottom of where the main jet is located, which is right here in the center of the Venturi. You can see this is got a plastic Venturi. There's another little tiny tube right here that's feeding fuel. Looks like that's also supplied by the same galley over here, maybe. So I'm not sure what the purpose of that little tube is. And then see a hole over here. We've got a galley right here. This is the only adjustment on this carburetor right here. That goes down into here. This galley seems to go down again also to where this main fuel's coming in. And then over here on the throttle butterfly side, I can see a very small tiny hole right in here that's directly opposite this one and only Welch plug on the whole carburetor is right here. Now the very basic kit for this carburetor basically just has the gaskets. I don't even think it comes with the Welch plug. So if we can avoid having to remove this Welch plug, that would be great. There are actually 3 tiny holes there. So you can see right there as I lower the butterfly, you can see it exposes a large hole, how large being a relative term, and 2 other tiny holes there. Those holes line up with that Welch plug right there. So that's why that plug's there, so you can get those holes clean. But we'll see if we can't clean those without pulling that. Alright, so now let's get to the issue I see with this carburetor. The only issue I see other than being dirty. And that's over here on this side, this adjustment screw. I haven't touched this adjustment screw yet. And the issue I'm seeing is that it's very, very loose. I can actually wiggle this back and forth. Alright, so this is the screw. You can see how loose that is. Ridiculously loose. Vibration's going to let that thing turn around and be completely out of adjustment. There should be a spring in there. So, I mean, I am going to check and see how far I can screw it in before it bottoms out. Try and make note of the adjustment, but it almost seems silly to try. It appears to be at about 8 o'clock. Four and a half turns, so that seems to be screwy. 4.5 turns. There should be a screw in here. I mean a spring. Oh, the spring is there. Yeah, so 4.5 turns can't be right. Alright, let's just for the heck of it. This is carburetor number 2. Yeah, that one's nowhere near as loose as the other one is. 1 3/4. 1 3/4. And I can see the bottom one is turned. If anything, it's turned in even further. So something was really, really screwy with that upper carburetor. Boy, that must have been running rich. So this looks like it's just a screw that allows you to clean out this galley. Ooh, boy, that's tight. There is some red goop around this Welch plug, this screw, and this screw. Try this screw. With this big plug out of the bottom, I can see a jet that unscrews in there. And with this plug out on this side, I can actually see what looks like another jet that unscrews in there. Need a little bit of a wider blade. I can't use that extra wide blade. Now that I've got it broken loose, I'm going to use this smaller blade because the tiny tube that appears to go right up this galley right here kind of protrudes a little far. Matter of fact, you can't get this unscrewed with that tube in there. So that tube must come out through this top. What is going on here? There's some kind of black goop or something around this. That was it. Little mechanical shock to break that plug loose. And there's that little tube assembly. There we go. Take that out. Now, I can come back to this one and get this one out. How about that? That actually keeps the plastic venturi in place.
Daddy.
Yep.
Tomorrow morning,
Mm-hmm.
can Anna play a PS3 first and then May play?
Who played it last?
What?
Who played it last?
Peter.
Yeah, I guess so. I think I could do a pretty adequate job of cleaning this without taking this Welch plug out. What I want to do is I want to get this needle assembly out of here. Looks like what you're going to do is you're going to take this pin out first. Get that on the magnification and just make sure I drive that pin in the right direction. Okay. So this little knurled area right here is the side this comes out of. And make sure I keep track of how this goes. So the side that this needle valve is closest to has this pin going from the top if I have it oriented this way. That's actually the second one I'm supposed to take out because it's underneath, but I can actually scoot this underneath. This is the underneath lever. So this hump actually is up against the underside of this flap piece right here. And I just realized I don't need to take this. Well, do I need to take this off? Yeah, because I'm going to want to unscrew that so I can soak that whole thing. Okay. Let's see if this pin goes this way. Alright, same deal here as far as the direction the pin goes. Again, holding it this way so that the needle valve is closest to this side. The pin goes in the top, the little knurled area at the top. The pins look identical. That allows this flat piece right here to come off. Again, this is almost like a pan. The pan side is facing up towards this little hump on this one. Once those are out, pretty easy to take the needle right on out. The tip of this needle is metal, but it has a little red stripe around it. I'm going to unscrew this. No, it's way too big. 5/16. Oh, man, is that tight. That's it. All I'm going to do now is throw these pieces all in for a bath in the cleaner. And I'm going to use the Gum Out air intake and throttle body cleaner that I've been substituting for carb cleaner. Carburetors never cease to amaze me. I mean, the engineering behind them. I just found, I kind of noticed that there's a little indentation here on the inside. So I was looking with the magnifying glass to see if I could see if it was a port, and it's a tiny, tiny hole in the near the very top of the bowl here that passes through into the venturi, or the throat of the carburetor. I mean, it's so small, it's hard to see. But if I pass this little cleaner tip through here, and here it is. And then there's another one on the other side here that looks like that might go through to, I'm not sure where. If I get the straw all the way down here, down this opening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this open, push the straw all the way down there, and blast it. And I can clearly see 3 jets of cleaner coming out those 3 holes, so I know those are clean. This opening going down right through here is completely wide open because I have that tube removed. Got this little straw here, this little tiny tube right here. I want to try and get some stuff right down that. And that's going to be a little trickier. Well, that's a straight shot right through, so I just push the tip cleaner through there and that works. Oh, the bottom of that bowl actually looks pretty good. Put the seat for the needle valve back in. I'll drop the needle valve back in, and now that seems to move a lot easier. Well, I've got to figure these 2 things out, and I recall Well, this is narrower, so it has to go on this side. And there's a little mark right there, a little dot right on this piece that indicates to me that it's been sitting up against that pin. Judging from the tiny marks I can see inside this hole, this knurled side of this pin was over here. So I've got this in backwards right now. Let's simply switch it around. Should do it. So now this goes on here. Must go on like this. Yeah, because it doesn't really make sense for it to go on this way. So this must go on like this. Oh, I'm probably gonna end up editing out a bunch of that because I didn't realize that I wasn't in frame when I just messed around with this thing. But essentially what I did was I cleaned out this tube, made sure that all the ports and everything are open by spraying through them. I reassembled this assembly here. I just confirmed that the float, the flat part of the float, is the bottom. So this has to go on just like that. This cover goes back on, and looks like it could actually, no, looks like it wouldn't go on that way even if no, I guess you could have screwed on that way, which would be the wrong way. The other big giveaway is you see how tall this is on this side? That's the longer of those two screws. And that was the inboard one. So it's got to go, cannot go this way, it has to go this way. I'm going to replace that gasket, I think. There are several kits available online for this carburetor, and the one that's really expensive has a whole bunch of parts that I don't need. But then there's a very inexpensive kit that contains just gaskets. It contains just this gasket here that mounts, that seals this to the intake. The bowl gasket that I just talked about. This gasket right here. And then on the inside of that cover, I believe there's another gasket. This is almost like a cork gasket in here. But for the time being, I'll just stick it in there. So now I know I can't put this long tube in because if I put this long tube in here, it's going to obstruct my ability to put this tube in. And this one I have not, since I've taken it out of its soak. I have not verified whether or not all of these holes are clear. Okay, all the holes are clear. So I'm going to drop this down. Now that I have that in, I can drop this tube in. And I'm going to break right there for supper. Oh, I already messed up. I forgot about the plastic. Alright, thanks. Forgot about this plastic venturi. It's held in by that piece I put in the middle. That long tube. Not the skinny one, the thick one. And I can't take that back out with that tube and that I just put in, so I can just, basically I can start over when I come back from lunch. I mean, supper.